Hey, it's Rachel Cooke, your modern mentor. I'm the founder of Lead Above Noise, a firm helping leaders end the tug of war between driving results and driving employee engagement. We do leader activation boot camps, keynotes, and pulse checks to help you build the custom blueprint you need to move forward. Let us know what you need. So, about those boot camps, one of my favorite parts about running them is that I get to peek behind the curtain about what groups of leaders are seeing and experiencing. Maybe most interesting to me is the fact that there are themes, like common things that pop up, whether I'm working with a leadership team in healthcare or retail or finance. Turns out people are people. It's weird, right? But the other great thing about these boot camps is that because I have several touch points with the same group over several weeks, I get to see real life results happen. Because over the course of the program, we move from learning to asking our teams the right questions to defining and implementing real action. I get to watch leaders realize, not to take it from me, but to learn from themselves, that they do have the power to make changes. Just small ones to start, but changes that have positive impacts on their teams and the results they deliver. For today, I thought it might be helpful to share with you some of those pesky things that seem to pop up across industries, and to share some of the strategies that I'm watching real-life leaders implement, because maybe there's a nugget in here for your team. The first is meetings with no movement. Meetings that are a fail, like for one of the following reasons. Either it was nothing but an update, should have been an email, or it was a meeting whose ending was defined by a clock versus an actual achieved outcome. Or a meeting full of people, all interested, but none of whom had the power to actually decide or move things forward. Meetings that go in circles. Or insert your own description of a painful meeting. The point is, they're sucking our souls out. We all know it. We all complain about it. But also, so many leaders just throw up their hands and say, hey, it's just our culture. There's nothing I can do about it. Well, spoiler, there is something you can do about it. Because the goal during these boot camps isn't to flip a switch from on to off, but it's to create tiny increments of change and to let them accumulate. So when one participant decided to make this simple change, I was intrigued. They committed to changing meeting titles from topic to purpose. Literally, like the way they named a meeting in the calendar. It was so simple, but it was clever. Instead of naming a meeting by the topic as we traditionally do, like marketing update or finance review or weekly team check-in, this leader decided they were going to call a meeting by what it was going to achieve. So, marketing decision about how to incorporate customer insights, or finance review to determine which programs we continue in 2025. Or team reconnect, assess how we're managing our priorities. This may seem small and symbolic, but only a few weeks into this strategy, it is already doing some pretty important things. One, it's helping meeting organizers recognize when they actually don't have a purpose or objective, and it's time to just write that email. And two, it's helping people both decide if they need to be at that meeting at all, and if so, how best to prepare for it. Because now they know what's going to happen in that meeting. And the more pre-work people do, the more impactful the meetings are getting. The next one that pops up a lot is lip service only to professional development. Hearing this one always and everywhere. Companies talking all day about their commitment to continuous learning and professional development when you can find the time. Also, you can never find the time, because something urgent always pops up. So one solution that I watched somebody implement, it's weekly learning circles. This leader decided with their team on a 90-minute window, they opted for 9 to 10:30 a.m. local time on Fridays. They would come together, physically or virtually, for what looked like a team meeting. But during that time, leaders were learning, either separately, like listening to a podcast or watching a TED Talk, or together, discussing an article, doing some peer coaching. The 90-minute window was treated as a sacred time. Like with any other meeting, there could always be an exception, but those exceptions really started becoming rare. It's still early days, but this leader is telling me that already it's encouraging learning, expected, but also driving a stronger team connection, which feels like a cheat code they will happily accept. The next one is inconsistent communication. Happens all the time. I'm not judging. You're a pretty good communicator. So are your peers leading other teams. Problem is, you all do it differently. Different tones, different cadences, different interpretations of details and expectations and priorities. So your teams get different messages, and it leads them to draw conclusions, and they're not always consistent team to team. And it's kind of exhausting, and it leads to inaccuracies. So what can you do to close the gap? Well, one bootcamp participant initiated a weekly communication check-in with her peers, the leaders sitting at the same level, leading teams or functions of their own. Each member of this group summarizes what they've shared with their team that week and what they plan to say in the following. And in some cases, they all work together to draft a single communication that goes to all of their teams. This leader is reporting an early sense of victory. Anecdotal feedback from the team has been positive, and collaboration across the teams is starting to happen more organically. And finally, time together that is failing to be connective. So, hybrid. We got to talk about it, right? So many teams across industries are working in some kind of blended, remote in-person reality. And we haven't really fully mastered it yet. One thing coming up a lot is the sense that people are commuting to an office by force rather than choice. And in their time at an office, they are mostly sitting on Zoom meetings and resenting every minute of it. Does this feel familiar? So one thing that a bootcamp participant took on is a little bit of professional matchmaking. Hear me out, because I think this one is kind of cool. He sent out a super quick survey to a bunch of people both on and not on his team. And he asked a few questions about their areas of passion and expertise, what they want to learn, what their career ambitions are, that sort of thing. And based on a quick review of those results, he started putting people into pairs or small groups in which he thinks there's mutual benefit, like everyone has something to teach and to learn. And he shared that back, encouraging matches to coordinate days in the office with each other. And so far, the feedback, it's been really solid. It's a $0 investment driving connection, purpose, and learning, which is hard to argue. So tell me, do any of these challenges play your team? If not, then keep on keeping on. But my guess is at least one of these is probably jumping out. So go ahead, borrow the strategy I shared or create your own. Or better yet, shoot me a note at rachel@leadabovenoise.com, and let's talk about how an activation bootcamp might give the leaders in your organization the clarity and tools they need to win big. Join me next week for another great episode. Until then, visit my website at leadabovenoise.com. If your workplace could use an activation boost, a bootcamp, a keynote, a pulse check, you choose. You can follow Modern Mentor on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a successful week. Modern Mentor is a quick and dirty tips podcast. It's audio engineered by Dan Firabend. Our director of podcasts is Brandon Getches. Our podcast and advertising operations specialist is Morgan Christensen. Our digital operations specialist is Holly Hutchings. Our marketing and publicity associate is Davina Tomlin.